Welcome, everyone, to the Super Connector, where we talk about all things related to the world of influence. Everything from sales to leadership, networking, entrepreneurship, and my personal favorite, how to win friends and influence people. Today, we have a special guest, Mary Dee. She is renowned as the Joy Catalyst, a sought after and trusted advisor who guides CEOs through the ever changing landscape of startup team to scale up team. She's a seasoned entrepreneur and has successfully nurtured multiple startups into multi-million dollar enterprises. She's been a fractional COO, sales and leadership coach, sales manager, recruiter, business owner, and also podcaster. She currently provides services for human resources auditing, hiring, operations auditing, and fractional COO services. Mary, how are you?
Great. Thank you for the intro, Stephen.
You're welcome. So, let's just get started off. There are so many things that you've done. You have a very impressive career. So, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, if you'd like?
Yeah, absolutely. So these days, I'm more of a transformation coach. And that's because through my work with so many CEOs and so many organizations, I've found that it's the business of transformation that is actually my favorite. And it's where things move. It's where business moves. It's where we move as humans. It's where our spirituality is able to go from, one level to the next. And those are the things that really have me excited these days. And the beautiful part of that is my history in business is just such a nice catalyst for all things that still equate on the high performance side. And that's really where I love to play. I love to play with my high performers. I love to play with folks who are just making those transitions. And when I say transitions, I mean transitions from, good to great, from okay to the best, from the best to absolute excellence. And so it's all about optimization and honestly, our quality of life and living a legacy that we're proud of leaving behind.
I like that you mentioned the term legacy. I often think about that. There is something that I do want to leave behind me in the future. In my trail of whatever excellence I achieve, I do want to be good and get better, become the best, and then a high achiever. So when you're helping people achieve that, what are some of the methods that you use?
It's a great question. So, one of the methods I use is somatic healing, and that is really helping folks get in touch with their nervous system. Because if you can actually get to a point where you can trust your nervous system, where your nervous system trusts you, you're in a really, really good place because it means you're grounded. And it's much easier to make good decisions from a place of being grounded versus from a place of anxiousness or scarcity or fear. And it's really helping people get back to that safety and the truth of the fact that the answers are within them, and they have to be able to trust themselves in order to do that. So I'd say somatics is one of them. So that's being able to, again, move through your body and allow your body to relax and be in that rest digest stage where it also calms your brain down and just allows you to be in the zone, to really be in the zone. One of the other methodologies that we use is around helping people get in touch with where they're actually aligned in their own values. And one of those things is their definition of success, because all of us have a different definition. And often we borrow that definition from our parents, or we borrow it from the media, or we borrow it from other marketers that we see. We might borrow it from our neighbor, from our best friend, from that other guru that we've seen a million times on our screens. And so it's really important that people get in touch with their own idea of success, their own definition of success, because it really is something a little bit different for everyone. And once you're really aligned with your own definition of success, then you're allowed to move forward really powerful and really clearly on what the next real steps are for you versus kind of the noise of the media or the noise of other people's opinions.
Yeah, and the word that with that explanation, the one word that really resonated with me was alignment. Because I understand that if my values align with my actions, I feel at peace. And also another thing too, when you were talking about this what was it? Somatic healing?
Somatic healing. Yeah.
Somatic healing. Okay. I mean, with the nervous system, I do a type of visualization or meditation before my sales calls. So I do it for about 5-10 minutes before the sales call, and it centers me, and I just feel myself calming down. And once I do that, I'm able to actually connect with the person I'm talking to, so I can actually guide them to their solution. So
Yes.
the audience watching, and me too, we really want to know, what is somatic healing? Please, it sounds fascinating. What is it?
Yeah, it's literally the ability to tap into your body and create clarity within your nervous system. And when I say clarity, it's movement. And people create you can create somatic healing through different methods. One of the easiest ones is taking people through like a guided meditation. That would be one example, but one where movement is involved, because somatics is about being in the body. And so this is how we create this clarity in our body. So, for example, how you were giving the example of doing a meditation before you go into a sales call, you are essentially getting in touch with your body, right? If your body is jittery and it's moving around and it's a little anxious, and
Yeah,
you know it's in this kind of this flighty state, right? So your wings are going, and that's the best visual I can give you, is that your wings are pumping right now.
yeah,
So in order to get yourself to that grounded state where we want to land, we've got to stop the flapping. And so one of the ways that you're sharing with me is how you meditate, and that stops the flapping so that you can be
yeah,
grounded and then centered to be able to focus and go into your call. And so somatic healing works the same in the body. It stops the flapping, and it can be through different movements. One of them is tapping. I'm sure if you haven't heard of tapping, it's a beautiful methodology, but that helps people just stop. It's an easy way for someone who's not used to regulating their nervous system. It allows them to stop and go, oh, I need to tap. And they might have like a mantra that they tap when they
yeah,
are feeling anxious. And then that helps them get focused on the tapping, right? It's just like focusing on your breath. The other one is breath work. So breath work is a beautiful way to also learn to get into your body. It allows you to focus on the breathing into your lungs, breathing into your belly, letting go. And again, you're bringing that focus back so that you can stop the fluttering, and we want to slow things down. And yoga is a great way to get into movement. I've got a great story for you. When I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and after surgery, I remember trying to go to a regular yoga class again, and I felt so defeated because I just couldn't, like, I wasn't ready to lay on my stomach, and it just still didn't feel good to move certain ways. And I was like, what do I do? So I went and found a yoga class for breast cancer survivors. And in that class, as soon as I got into a position, I just remember getting this huge release, because number one, I felt safe because I was in a room full of other people who could understand where I was coming from. And
yeah,
number two, I could move my body again in a yoga pose, but in a way that also felt good to my body. And so my body was stopping the flutter. It was able to relax. And now I'm getting movement. And, some tears came. And that's because what comes up wants to come out. And
yeah,
those tears were wanting to release just the anxiety I was having over not feeling in my body yet after such a big surgery and such a big life event. And so this was a beautiful opportunity to just create some healing for myself. And it was done through doing some yoga in a way that honored my body and in a way that also honored my mind, because I could come in and go, oh, these people understand me, and I'm in a room full of people who are just like me. So
yeah,
it's that kind of impact that it can have on you. And so many of us are not used to trusting our own body, and not everyone knows how to get all the little jitters out when they're feeling that anxiousness. And so it's really
yeah,
important that we find the tools, and there's so many good ones out there that are helpful. Honestly, even exercise is a great. We don't really call it somatics or use it in that version, but really exercise is a great release. You've heard people get runner's high. You've also heard
yeah,
of people who start exercising a certain way and then they just start crying, because oftentimes it's through the physical movement that we're able to come bring out what needs to come up and release it. And somatic healing is just one more very intentional way of doing that. And I have a guided system that I do with folks.
So, can you give us an example, a success story of someone that you've done somatic healing on?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So there is a mastermind group that I'm a part of. And the last time we got together, I was able to create a session for the group. And one of the ladies on on our team. She has really been working through relationships and trying to call in the one. And she's been through a series of relationships that have not been successful. And she's feeling a little battered by love these days. But through the session afterwards, she was sharing that she was really able to release some of just the old junk and the old residue of that old relationship that had been sitting by using the prompts and using the movement that we did through the session, and then stepping into her next version of herself. And was excited to report that even just this last week, she let me know she was headed out with a really conscious man. And that's exciting. It's exciting to know that, like, okay, she did the healing session. She could viscerally feel in her body that there was a shift. And then here we are 2 months later, and she's like, hey, I'm in a beautiful relationship and it feels really good. So then I go, okay, great. These are the steps, right? These are the milestones. And it's not like a one all or a one off.
Yeah.
And it can be done in some of the small things, because so much of what we do and how we live in life is we grab onto these stressors and we add them, and they stack like those little rocks you see people stack up on the beach sometimes. And they get too high sometimes, and then they all fall over. And that's when we feel all the impacts of all the little stressors that are happening. So if you're doing somatic healing on a regular basis, you're allowing yourself to kick off those rocks one at a time, so that you don't build up these big stacks. And sometimes you get to a big stack, and somatics helps wipe that out as well. But I recommend it on a regular basis because it's a really beautiful way to move through your body and move through your emotions.
Well, this sounds like a very transformational process. And I love human psychology. I love learning about the mind and body connection. So this is very intriguing for me. So yeah, I'm going to dig more into this. I'm going to dig more into this after this interview as well. So, but you have so much stuff on your resume. Well, your life resume, I would say. I'd like to get to a little bit of business, like, because
Do it.
you've helped so many companies, and you've managed so many very large sales teams of up to 150 people, correct? Wow.
Yeah. So I was over an organization, and we had a sales team that was 150 at one point. We were just growing so fast. When we first started, when we opened the doors, we had like 6 salespeople, and they were A+ salespeople. So I'm very happy about that.
Yeah.
But we were scaling and growing so fast that even for those high functioning 6 salespeople, it was just too much. And so we had to scale and grow really fast. And
Yeah.
so within that, managing even, sales managers and sales folks who can go in there and get it done, and learning to scale, and also learning to scale back.
Okay. So you went to 150 and then all the way back down to 50, I think. Did you say?
That's
That was a,
correct.
okay, wow. Now, I have heard that scaling too fast is one of the biggest problems that businesses face. Now,
Yeah.
could you give me your insight on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So years ago, I ran a digital agency, and we had courses and events, and those were our products. And so, as you know, digital products can scale very quickly, and there's really no ceiling on them, right? I don't have to wait for a manufacturer to send me anything. No one has to wait for their product to come in the mail. It's instant, it's here, and it's now. So with that, scaling can come really easily. And we had a really great product. We also had an amazing group of affiliates. They were master marketers, and they were good. They had their own lists, and they knew also how to create, leads in the world. And so they were great at going out and selling our products. So that's one of the reasons we were growing so quickly. We weren't mad at it in the beginning, but what happens is there's other factors that show up that start to break your business. Now, the first thing that's great about scaling at this level is you're getting a lot of feedback really fast, so you can start making tweaks. And then you get it so dialed in that there's not much more to fix. You're just literally a machine of selling and delivering, selling and delivering, selling and delivering. But the things that do break along the way are things like banking relationships. So, for example, your merchant account, they are not ready for you to suddenly go from zero to $1 million in 30 days. It feels really scary for the bank because they have not built a relationship with you. They haven't built time with you. And so this is where that can get a little wonky. And then you got to get really creative around your merchant accounts. And so this is where having relationship partners, having merchant partners, being in a good relationship with your bank are really important. And it's also why newer businesses will struggle more with this if they're growing so fast, is because they may not have an existing relationship. Versus, if you are someone like Tony Robbins, he's been around forever, for as long as I can remember, I think 30 plus years now.
Yeah.
And so if he comes out with a product that he's selling, most of the banks know who Tony Robbins is. They've been processing stuff for him for years, and millions of dollars. So if he needs to open up a line of millions of dollars and process it, they're probably not going to blink twice. They know what Tony's about. They know what he's out selling. He's going to have his ducks in a row. But if you are a
Yeah.
newer company and you're selling a digital product or coaching or even events, they're going to open their eyes a little bit and go, whoa, hold on here. So that's one of the things that you'll end up hitting the wall against. The other one is just the capacity for people. One of the reasons we went to 150 is because we were like, oh my gosh, this train is going. We need more salespeople. But more salespeople wasn't necessarily the answer. It was more good salespeople. And
Yeah.
so part of that process was just learning, like, okay, well, now that we've hired and trained all these folks, then what? Then we had to instill a process to where we literally went through and said, okay, every month we're going to look at the bottom 10%, the bottom 20. And we're going to know that if those folks can't consistently get up to par, well, then they're out, because why would we waste our time when you've got
Yeah.
those other, percentage that are great at being able to follow up with leads and stay in the trenches and do their work and make great money doing it. So there's those pieces. And then of course, one of the other things that happens with scaling, especially with product-based companies, is they just can't go produce their stuff fast enough or source it fast enough, especially supplement companies. If they get a special, I don't know, berry out of China, and that they need maybe the berry pickers in China only have so many people available to do it, and they sell out of stock. Well, it's going to take time for the berry pickers to go into the fields, for us to grow the berries, for us to dry the berries, for us to squish them up, send them to the manufacturer. So there's all of those nuances that happen. We obviously saw it with COVID, where things
Yeah.
just weren't shipping from overseas. So if you were sourcing overseas products, you were really in a bind because you couldn't get ingredients. My favorite pizza place here, Stephen, was this Italian place. It was so good because they literally sourced all their ingredients from Italy, down to the flour. And of course, when COVID showed up and they couldn't get their stuff, all they could do was close. And there were 3 of them here locally in the area, and they all closed. And I was so sad because it was the best pizza. I know. So I was like, oh, well, at least we know they actually did source all their ingredients from Italy, because if they didn't, they wouldn't have closed down.
Yeah, of course. I know. I would have been sad too if my favorite pizza
So
place went
sad.
out of business.
It was
Absolutely.
sad. It was sad.
Yeah. So last time we spoke, you were mentioning something called an expectation gap when I believe you said a solopreneur is moving to an entrepreneur. Is that correct?
Yeah. So oftentimes when a solopreneur is moving to entrepreneur, what I mean by that is, take any young first time CEO or owner, or someone who has built something, and now they're like, wow, and they've been doing it by themselves for a while, and now they're moving into the stage where they need to rely on a team and other people to help them, because they cannot be a one person show anymore.
Yeah.
The expectation gap that I like, the reason I call it that is because there is a huge gap in their expectations. And this is where the expectation is that everything is going to continue to get done exactly how they did it.
Mm.
Well, some things in the process part of that are probably true, but other things are not. For example, sales calls. If this person has been doing their own sales calls and now they're trying to hand it over to another team or another person, if they don't, if so much of their selling relies on maybe their personality,
Yeah.
or then, I don't know, having their own, unique method, and people love talking to them because they're the maker and the owner of the thing, but now they can't be in front of those people all the time, then they're going to have an expectation that their sales team can do that too. And when they don't, they're going to go, oh, well, they can't do it as good as me, so let me stay here and keep trying to do it. And so they keep spinning their wheels and they keep overloading themselves because they're not willing to let anything go. So they've got to release some of those expectations and instead put those great systems, people, and processes in place to where all these people who are helping you can now maybe do it well, do it really good, and you can continue to train them, but you have to get out of the mindset of believing that your expectation is that it's going to get done exactly like I was doing it and everyone's going to operate exactly like I did. It's like, no, they're not. But if you will let this well, if you'll let the duplication happen, you're going to see that even if they're operating at 80%, that's still going to now free you up to do your brilliant things. And now you can help nurture them and train them and get better people in there to where you can feel really good. Like, oh, wow, their close rate is actually really good. Okay, wow, this is really working. Oh, they're selling in their own way, but they're selling my product and they're figuring it out. They're on board. So I think that's one of the biggest pieces is just being able to let go. People are just not willing to let go sometimes because
Yeah.
the control feels good. It feels like, oh, I know what I'm doing. Can I trust that they know what they're doing? And oftentimes what I tell people is if you've hired people to help you and you are seeing so many of these gaps, you have to go back and look at yourself because there's something in that process where you probably are incomplete on how to
Yeah.
do something. Like you skipped a step because you know it so well, but you skipped a step for them somewhere in the process. And I just went through this recently on my very own team. And so I'm preaching to the choir here when I
Yeah.
say this, for something as simple as I think there was my podcast, there is an agreement that usually goes out before. And I totally forgot to mention to the team, I was like, hey, this should always go out before the show. And I caught it after the last episode and I went, oh my gosh, I totally missed that step because I'm just so used to that being part of the system and part of the process. And so that was really important to go, okay, I had someone else doing that in the future. I had to replace her. And in that replacement process, I forgot to mention that step and that was on me. So I was like, okay, that's on me. I've got to go back and see where some of the gaps are. And that's why I said you always have to look at yourself first and then go back and talk to your team.
Yeah, ownership and accountability. And I think that's a great form of leadership. It's
Yeah,
necessary to lead by example, and you kind of need to live your life like that.
that's
Now,
right.
I can imagine that when a business owner has been selling their own product and they're extremely passionate about it, that there must be a massive amount of anxiety when they're handing it over to someone else, right? Have you found that when consulting entrepreneurs at no matter what size their sales team is, that you have to help them get through their mindset issues or mindset problems?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what happens, Stephen, is no matter what level of entrepreneurship or business that you're at, the one thing you will always continue to work on because it will always show up for you is your thinking. There's a level of thinking that happens, there's this frequency and vibration that you're at in the very beginning, and as you scale and grow, you have to be able to raise your level of thinking and your level of vibration and your level of frequency to get to the next level. Otherwise you're just going to stay right where you've always been. And so this is the art of embracing growth. And so much of it is if you're someone who can take a lot of ownership and you're someone who will take accountability and you're willing to do that radically, then what you'll find is that as those challenges come, you'll see them all as learning opportunities and they just add to your tool belt of what you know. And now they become wisdom that you get to use with the next thing that you're doing or with the next level that you're going to. But we will never be able to operate way up here if our thinking is still way down here. Because,
Yeah.
down here is where we're thinking about, I don't know, the past, or we're thinking about what didn't work out. Well, if we didn't learn anything, then we're going to always take that scarcity with us as we grow. So that's just a big piece of it, is being able to rein that in.
Well, it's so interesting that you're saying this because I've interviewed so many people on my podcast, people that are very successful. And when I'm interviewing someone, especially in person, I'm asking them questions and I'm trying to get up to their wavelength. So I can feel the way that they feel and how they think. And what I've noticed is that highly successful people, be it with money or business or whatever it is, they think differently. And that's just what I sense. And it's very intriguing when I'm interviewing them. So, what have you noticed in highly successful people and the differences in the way they think?
Oh, gosh. I would say that one of the huge differences that I've noticed is in the highly successful, they are people who are always investing in their growth. Meaning when I'm working with someone, they're they're not someone who is just learning to pick up a book. You talked about winning friends and influencing people. Like they read that one when it first came out, or
Yeah.
it was one of the first things they read coming out of high school. Like that's where they're at.
Yeah.
There are people who invest into their own personal development because they already know that they don't know it all. And so they are reaching for the growth. They're looking for the clues that success leaves, and they are picking them up on the way, and they're wanting to be in front of those people who they know can help them get there. So they are not scared to invest in mentorship. They're not scared to invest in masterminds. They're not scared to go out and say, wow, I think this person can help me, let me go ask them for some help. And I think that is probably one of the biggest things I see, because they are ready to raise their hand. They just are really ready to raise their hand. And that's one of my, I'd say, core alignment factors with a client when I'm screening them and when we're talking about working together is I want to know, how are they investing in their growth and what are they actually after? And that would be one of the other things is, are they clear and aligned with their own values? Do they even know what they stand for? Do they know why they're doing their business? Some people want a lifestyle business. Other people want to scale it, grow it, sell it. Other people want to have a family business that they can leave to their children and that they can leave to their children. So they want to have some legacy in the family. So this is where it gets important to be really clear about where we're going. And so that would be probably the other one, is just they have a clarity and a good sense of their vision and how they want to bring that to life. If there's a third one, I would say that it is going to be that they have a level of awareness around their own health. That's the one I see amongst the highest performers, is they also have their health dialed in, meaning
Yeah.
because your health helps you manage your stress. And that part is really important, because if you are in your business and you're grinding, business, money, one day you're going to wake up and you're going to now have no more time and no more energy, because your health is going to be plummeting, and you're going to
Yeah.
spend all the money that you just made trying to get healthy. And
Yeah.
those entrepreneurs usually end up becoming health entrepreneurs who now launch a product in a thing, because they were dying and stressed out, and now they're healed because they learned to get their health into control. So it's a funny sort of cyclical cycle of things. But that would be one. The other one is, I find that there are also people who really want to be able to take care of themselves. And that's and maybe I'm just lucky in the circles that I run in, but I would say that those are probably the biggest three.
Yeah. Now, you've managed a lot of sales teams. You've had many, many positions, many clients. I just want to ask a question about team dynamics, because conflicts do arise amongst a team, and of highly successful people and mediocre people. So, how do you resolve conflicts within a sales team?
Handling conflict amongst a sales team isn't much different than handling conflict in general, right? So there's a number of factors at play. There's ego is usually a big one that
Yeah.
plays into it, especially, I'd say, especially on sales teams, because everyone's competitive.
Yeah.
Everyone wants the thing. But the conflict, it really just depends. But I'll break down conflict for you, because it's obviously the infraction that happens, right? So someone feels offended, someone's feelings are hurt, someone feels like they didn't get justice. There's that person, and then there's the other person who is, of course, the villain, who created the infraction, who did the thing, who provoked somebody, who also thinks they're right. And part of it is being diplomatic. So part of my role as a kind of lifetime COO has been to go in and say, okay, how do we evaluate what's happening here? And it's honestly allowing each person to speak their truth and their story, because we all have one, and this is how we all go through life, right? And we tell ourselves a story about whatever's happening in the conflict. And what often happens is, when you bring in a third person to help with that dissolution of the problem, that third person can be a lot more objective. And they can go, okay, I see where this story is happening, and probably ask some clarifying questions. And through that, we figure out most of the time that the truth is somewhere in the middle. It's never usually what each person's story is. It's a little bit of both. and then it's dashed with another, someone got triggered because there was a certain word used, or someone got triggered because maybe they've been working on a thing and they just got accused of doing that, even though that's not what they meant. Someone was joking, but the other person didn't take it as a joke. Like there's so many things, and we, have to be specific about the situation for me to really dive in there and answer that for you. But in general, it's allowing people to feel seen and heard, and allowing them to speak their truth, and then finding out what is a win-win that we can walk away from this table with. And sometimes it's I'd say that among sales teams, the biggest conflicts I've seen are actually between salespeople and the customer. So maybe a customer is
Oh,
asking for a refund. Yeah. Or a customer saying, hey, I felt like I was sold this, but I was not, this and that. That's where I've probably seen more of the sales conflicts come into play, to where I'm having to go, okay, what is the customer saying? What is the salesperson saying? Can I, can I vouch for my salesperson? Because of course, I believe that they're operating at the highest level of integrity. And also, can I not get on the bandwagon of buyers or liars? Because that's always a fun phrase you'll hear thrown around in the sales world. But I'm like, not always. And also giving people the opportunity to just speak whatever their truth is. Oh, you can't afford this now, and so that's why you're asking for a refund, even though you're out of the policy period. Okay, now this is a different conversation. It has nothing to do with the salesperson, right? And so that's also being a little bit of an investigator and getting in there and figuring out what is the actual source of this problem, because it's not always. A lot of times it's ego, but a lot of times it's just that people might be, that back currenting what's really going on because they're hoping for a different outcome.
yeah. So this podcast is called the Super Connector, and a super connector is a master networker. So I'd like to ask, how do you network, and how has networking changed your life and your career?
It's such a great question. I am you've heard this said over and over again by the top salespeople of all modern time, which is your net worth is in your network, right? It's who you surround yourself with. And I have to say there's a lot of truth to that. There really is. It's a saying because it's true. It's a cliche because it's true.
Yeah.
Your community, your network are your people who get to know you, and through the knowing, they get to stand by you, and they also get to vouch for you, and you also get to vouch for them. And it
Yeah.
becomes an ecosystem. And that's why it's so important. I would say that I'm naturally friendly and I'm naturally curious. And so those two things have worked in my favor. I am not afraid to strike up a conversation with a stranger in line at the grocery store. I'm not afraid to look at the person in the fruit aisle and ask them if they think this mango looks like it's any good. It's just a matter of being friendly and also being curious and being open. And I would say, to add to that, it's also in learning to not take offense easily, right? So if
Yeah.
they don't want to talk to you, or if they're just not that interested, no big deal, move on. And so I think that those are the pieces within a network that are really important. So with that mindset in mind, I go in and I say, wow, how many people can I connect with in this room? And I believe in going into a room with the intention of, is there giving that I can do here? And so
Yeah.
I found that through giving, you often get reciprocated, and maybe not in that moment, but people don't tend to forget you because they feel like, oh wow, this person's really on my side, they've already given to me. And that's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to help someone problem solve. And we give in many ways, right? We might give in an actual referral, but we also might give in just honestly, let's say that you had just broken your arm, Stephen, and the first thing I ask you isn't, what do you do for a living? Do you have a business card? But it's, oh my gosh, Stephen, how's your arm? Like, are you okay? How's that feeling, man? What did you do? Right? I get to connect with you on a more personal level and actually care about you as a human long before I ever care about whether we're doing business together. And I think that's the piece that a lot of people miss, because we miss the magic of just what relationships can be. You never know who you're talking to. And by just being a good human.
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, just being a good human and learning to connect with others without any kind of self, um, there's a word for it that I'm not, like selfishness, and not even selfishness is not even the right word for it. I'm trying to think of the right word, and it's on the tip of my tongue, but without going into it with a big agenda. It's like, can I just walk into the room and make some new friends, right? Like there doesn't have to be a giant agenda to it. And with that mindset, you go and you connect with people naturally, and through that conversation, it naturally comes out whether there's ways you can work together, or whether there's a referral there, or whether they think of you, when someone else needs what you have, even if they don't. So I think that's the biggest piece of it, is just being curious, and not taking offense easily, and being able to walk in and just make some friends. Be open in the way that you want people to be open with you.
Yeah. And my sales coach always tells me, always lead with value. And I'm
Yes.
currently reading a book called The Go Giver.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. I've read The Go Getter, but The Go Giver I think is even more interesting. So I'm halfway through
Yeah.
that, and I'm going to keep on going.
Nice, nice. Yeah. And networking circles are so great. The ways I network are through masterminds. I mean, I've been around a long time, so I used to be old school. Like, you used to show up to like a big, business, and there'd be other people from all kinds of walks of life. There are mastermind circles. There are folks who also go through and throw like breakfast meetings, and like you'll introduce yourself and pass around cards. There's meetup groups. There's being in just circles of places and people that you want that are like you. So whether it's a sales conference, I would say live events has been an amazing way to meet people. That's probably
Yeah.
over my lifetime how I've met most of people, just through going to different events and connecting with people. And then they're like, oh, you're my people. Come over here to this group, or come talk to us about this. And the more people you talk to, the more chances that you get at having a high touch, and
Yeah.
embracing and connecting with other people who can introduce you to other people. And that's how it works.
And I myself, and I'm sure a number of people watching this, want to be super connectors themselves. They want to be master networkers. So, what suggestions do you have for hosting an event? Something that you
Ooh.
can do to get people together, whether it be a webinar, whether it be a mastermind. What can they do to get started?
That's so good. I am a personal fan of community building where you are. I think that there's a few ways to do it. If you're, for example, a spiritual teacher, or let's say that you're someone who, I'll use myself as an example. So let's say that we're opening the door for a somatic healing, and we're just going to start with that, because everyone's got something to heal. Someone's got a trauma, someone's got a thing. There's a lot going on in the world right now. And maybe I would invite you, and I'd say, okay, we have a lot of fear happening in the world right now. And so I would set up a meetup, and I would put it out there and say, hey, I'm local to, this week, San Diego, and we're going to have a meetup at the Moonlight Beach. There's this grassy area. It's really beautiful. Can't miss it. Here's the pin. I'm going to drop it for you guys. And come, and I'm going to teach you 3 ways to overcome your biggest fears. And so start with something catchy that people need, and that is resonating with them. So if there's a lot of fear in the world and that's what people want to get rid of, I'm going to say, come get 3 things that I'm going to share with you about how you can get rid of this fear. And then people naturally will gravitate over to that message, because it's what they want. It's not any different if I say, Stephen, I'm going to throw a big festival this weekend, and it's going to be like, oonch, 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 oonch,
Yeah.
it's going to be a good time. Then all my festival people are going to be like, where do I need to go? Where do I need to show up? And they're going to show up in their tutus and their glasses, and they're going to be ready to rave. So it's just putting it out there, right? You put out the right bait for the right fish that you want to catch. And so if I'm catching the people who are feeling fearful right now, I say, come on out. Let's do some healing work together. And then that's how you begin to interact with those people. And then they come, and you do it consistently, and then they start inviting people, and more people show up, people who wanted to show up the first time that just didn't have time, but now they do on this particular day. And then that's how you start building community. And then you might also then open it up. Someone in that group might run another group, and now they invite you to come over and help talk about 3 ways
Yeah.
to overcome fear in that group. And that's how it spreads. So it's just being consistent, and telling people what it is you're going to help them do.
Now, I had a very interesting guest on this podcast, one of the most interesting, Eli Wild. And I
Eli.
believe that you do know him. Is that
I
correct?
do. Yeah, Eli's a good guy. He's been around a long time.
Great. Now, Eli is really big into public speaking, of course. And I did ask him numerous questions about it on that episode. But I'd like to get your input. How does public speaking, how can public speaking improve your life?
Oh, this is such a good one. Public speaking can improve your life in so many ways. Number one, because it's most people's biggest fear. It's like one of the
Yeah.
biggest fears that people put out there is public speaking. And oftentimes that comes just from the inner critic. That's really what it is. It's that inner critic. And so part of it is just letting go of that perfection, and this is being in front of people and speaking in front of people is a great way to really test that out. Stephen, I've fallen on stage. Literally, I've tripped going on stage before, and you would think that, oh my gosh, this is mortifying and this is terrifying, this is whatever. I remember it happened, and I kind of laughed, and I picked myself up, and I just made a quick joke about it. And I'll tell you, nobody thought twice about it. Not even one person joked with me about it later, which I was fully expecting like it to like be the joke of the conference, but like no, like the content was great. We moved on. Like I just did it, recovered, moved right on. And so a part of it is just remembering that like what we think is going to be a big judgment, or if we think we're going to get judged, so oftentimes that's not it. Most of us, most everyone is in their own head thinking about their own time and their own judgment. So we
Yeah.
have to remember that like that doesn't really happen for other people. And so I think that being able to walk into the fire sometimes and just get up
Yeah.
and do a thing is the most important part. The feeling of anxiety and excitement are pretty much the same feeling. We just
Yeah.
all describe it differently. And so it's remembering like you can really get in there and garner your inner strength and your inner lion, your inner confidence to get up and just start talking to people. And the more often you do it, the better you'll get at it. And I would tell anyone that's worried about it, start with something you know really well. Start with
Yeah.
something you know incredibly well. You could talk about it for 30 minutes without any hesitation, without any problem, without any issue. And you'll notice that that will help you go, oh, like this isn't so bad. Like, oh, I am in front of people. This isn't terrible. Like, no one's booing me. No one's going to throw tomatoes, and even let's pretend you were the worst speaker ever and you got up, at least you got up and did it. And now you can look back on it and figure out, ooh, what can I learn from that? Did I
Yeah.
say 5,000 times? My hair was in a bad spot. I shouldn't have worn those dangly bracelets. That microphone was just really in a bad place. I should never wear green. Green doesn't look great on me. Like, you're going to learn so much by just doing it. And at the
Yeah.
end of the day, I know no one's going to care as much as you do. So just remember that. Like, no one's really going to hold it against you unless you're just getting up there and doing something atrocious, which, for most people who want to get up and speak professionally, that's not going to happen. You're usually going to offer some sort of value. And I've seen that happen too, where someone who's actually a pretty bad speaker, but what they're giving has a ton of value.
Yeah.
People grab it anyway, right? People are there, and people can, again, they can read your frequency, your vibration, your authenticity. Show up with those things and the right intentions, and let's see what happens.
Yeah. And you've helped so many people throughout their careers. What advice would you have for people advancing in their career, however, keep getting in their own way?
Oh, yeah, that's a rough one. The truth is, we all do it. We
Yeah.
all do. We all get in our own way in some way. And so oftentimes it's the internal dialogue that's happening. So the first thing I would say is check your internal dialogue and don't be so hard on yourself, because, of course, most people are harder on themselves than anybody else. The second one is get a coach, get a mentor, get someone you can have some accountability to, and also that you can have mirror you in some of these things, right? And this is where coaches and mentors are really great, because when you're stuck or when you're feeling a certain way or when you're like, they can help you see where you're in your own way. They can challenge you. They can hug you. They can give you some kind redirection on where you need to go. And I think that way, when you're not doing it alone, you oftentimes have much more awareness around, oh, like you might actually be doing great, and they can help you figure out what are you comparing yourself to, because it's also the comparison that is a killer. And
Yeah.
so I'd say that the second thing I'd tell that person is you just have to focus. Be clear on what your end goal is and double down on your focus, not on the noise of what someone else is doing or that someone else is also doing it or that too many other people are doing it. Like, the world needs your personal magic. And if you're too busy trying to do it like the other guy, or you're looking over here, then it's not going to work. I used
Yeah.
to run track and field, and when we ran relay races, we always had this this very clear direction of, okay, as soon as as you feel the baton in your hand, you run, and you run and you run, and you don't stop until you are past the end point. And the reason you do that is because if you don't, as you're running, you're going to be listening for steps behind you. And the worst thing you can do as a runner is listen to the steps behind you, because then you get in your head and you're like, oh my gosh, they're gaining on me. Oh my gosh, they're getting closer. Oh my gosh, the competition is coming around the corner. It's like, no, as soon as that baton goes, you go. And the only steps you should hear are your own. And all you want to do is get to that finish line. And that's the same in business, is you want to get clear. Don't get caught up in all the noise. Don't worry about who's creeping up behind you. Grab that baton and get to the finish line.
Great. This is such a great episode. There's so much great information here. I just thank you so much for coming on.
You're
Now,
welcome.
as you know, I love podcasting, and you do too. Can you tell
I
us
do.
more about your podcast, why you started it, and
Oh, sure.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. So my podcast is called The Mad Love Your Life Show. And I did it because I am a human design projector. And it's basically the energetics of your DNA. And part of what I'm called to do and what I'm here to do is to be a role model. And in that, the easiest way for me to share is through podcasting. It's
yeah,
also a great way for people who just want information about me, or before someone wants to work with me, they want to get to know me a little bit. They can go on the podcast, they can see what I'm about. They can
yeah,
also be introduced to my community. I have an amazing community of entrepreneurs who are superhuman, whether they're a badass in business or whether they're a spiritual luminary. I've got
yeah,
authors, music producers, the whole gambit. I feel really blessed to have such a eclectic group of people in my network. But they can
yeah,
also go there, and we all talk about our stories around what we know now that we wish we had known before we got started, before we were
yeah,
successful. And
yeah,
it's really about just helping you, whether you are the CEO of your life or the CEO of a business, really just get aligned with your life. Like I said, I had breast cancer once upon a time, healed from that holistically after surgery. I like to talk a lot about health and wellness and bring on health and wellness experts. It's just a great way to be well-rounded and to tell people, hey, you can live your best life, and it's available for you. And here are the ways that I know people who are doing it as well, and come along for the ride.
yeah. I got into sales a year and a half ago. I have learned so much. Sales professionals are intriguing, but who I find even more intriguing is entrepreneurs because of their ambition and their drive. What differentiates them from other people? What have you noticed?
Mm. The first one is resilience.
Okay.
Most entrepreneurs have a really, really good amount of resilience to them. They are able to take a step, take a stake, take a punch, go down, and get right back up. And some
Yeah.
of them stay down for a second, but they don't stay down too long. And that is a huge, probably one of the number one things that I could tell you about a really good entrepreneur is their resilience factor is incredible. The second one is they're risk takers, most of them.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a big piece of it too, is they have the ability to, whether it's taking calculated risks or sometimes taking not so calculated risks, but however you want to define that, they're definitely a risk taker in some sense and form. And then the third one is that they also know how to stay curious. They're curious about their marketing numbers. They're curious about why people are buying their stuff. They're curious about who's completing their programs and being successful and why that is, so that they can go back and duplicate those results. So they're looking for the patterns, and they're looking for, those pieces that make things tick. And then the last one is they have some level and sense of purpose.
Yeah.
Sometimes the purpose is they're there to make money. Other times their purpose is to do something really big and great into the world, or it's to do something sustainable, or it's to save a tree, save a human, save a thing.
Yeah. And that leads me to this because I have to ask this question on this episode. What gives you meaning and purpose?
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
I figured out a long time ago that my purpose is really built into just my day to day of me showing up as who I am. It
Yeah.
isn't, I don't think that I'm one of those people who, was like Moses. God didn't call me into the bushes and then I didn't come out with 10 commandments and share that with, the nations that would go on for lifetimes. I don't think it was that one big audacious thing that I was designed for. I believe that my life has been full of purpose just in all of the different interactions. And so much of that is just as I meet people and as I go places, I literally will get this feeling in my body, Stephen, where I know that thing I just talked to that person about, or that expression that we just shared, or that interaction that we just had, that was purpose. That was spirit showing up and being like, you're here for this moment. And I've told this story on my podcast, but I went in for an MRI once, and it was after, it was a few years ago. And as I'm in there, I'm thinking to myself, I probably don't really need to be here for this MRI. I don't really feel like anything's wrong. And I don't think
Hmm.
that this is it. I think, who knows? But for whatever reason, the appointment got set up and I'm here in this office and I'm sitting there talking to the nurse, and inside the systems, someone had hacked the medical system. So they didn't have anyone's records anymore, which is scary to think. But anyway, she's retaking my information. So I'm getting to spend all this extra time with this technician before we go in. And through it, we end up talking about my breast cancer journey. And we're talking about advocating with your medical professionals. And she says to me, Mary, she goes, I am so young that my doctor won't do any kind of like tests on me. And I really feel like something is wrong. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, well, you should advocate for yourself, because I, sat with an organization. I used to be on the chair of the board for the Breasties, and that's an organization full of young women who have
Yeah.
breast cancer. And I said, and most of them, because they advocated for themselves, even though the doctor was like, oh, you're too young for breast cancer. I was like, I hate to tell you this, but no one's too young. And so
Yeah.
if you're feeling that way and you have to advocate for yourself, or you can actually even call a patient advocate, is what they're called. They have those available for you if you don't feel like your doctor's listening. But through that conversation, and it was in that moment when she said to me, oh my gosh, she's like, you're so right. She's like, I just feel like more empowered. Like I need to go. She's, I'm going to make my doctor give me that appointment. And that was the moment. It just I dropped right into my body and went, there it is. I don't even need to go have this MRI now. Like I know why I'm here today. And so it's those reasons. And that's, one that's very like personal, sort of like someone around their health, but it can be anything. And sometimes it is business. Sometimes those are the minutes of inspiration that people need, or the moments that they needed to grasp that little detail. Like I hope that from all the questions you've asked me here today, that someone is listening and they went, oh my gosh, something
Yeah.
just went off, right? So I know that from the seat that I'm sitting in today, even though it's just me and you in this room right now, we're the only eyeballs here, that once you release this, lots of
Yeah.
eyeballs and ears are going to be on it. And I hope whoever that person is, that we got to be this magical, energetic domino through our conversation for them, that they now get to go on and maybe that ripples through someone else. I say that I'm
Yeah.
here in life to plant all the seeds. And I hope that they are full of gardens that are rich and full and lush. And
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the ones that get to come back to me and go, hey, look at my garden. But I also know that, hey, I've dropped a lot of seeds on the way, and there's a lot of beautiful gardens out there. And that brings me joy and purpose. And I feel good waking up every day knowing that that's how it's going to be.
Yeah, and this is why I love podcasts so much. It's a win-win for everyone, and we get to provide so much value for people. I have
Yes.
received DMs, private messages from people just saying, I've been watching your podcast for a while. I found it so inspiring. Thank you. And that was, wow, did that ever feel great? It really
Yes.
made it all worth it. You know?
Yes.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, I'd like to ask one question because you've coached so many people, you've had so many clients. What advice would you have for entrepreneurs that are just starting out and trying to scale their business?
Ooh, the entrepreneur who is just starting out, but they're already ready to scale, then that means they are probably having fast success. So I would say, first, congratulations. I would say don't forget to celebrate along the way. Don't forget to nurture your team, because whatever you reward are the things that they are going to act on.
Yeah,
And I would say that your success leaves clues. So make sure that you are leaving those clues behind for somebody else along the way.
I love how you said that. That is going to be the best short out of this whole thing. It was so inspirational. It's going to be the best one. I'm going to post it all over LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. That's so great. Oh,
Nice.
Mary, it was so great to have you on this podcast. You're very intriguing, especially when you're talking about the somatic healing.
Thank
And
you.
for everyone watching, go and check out her podcast. I'm going to put all the links for her socials and her business and everything in the links in the comment section down below. Check her out. Check out her website and her podcast. It was so great to have you on, and I would love to have you on again one day. Okay,
Awesome.
so
Awesome.
we're going to wrap it up, and I always wave goodbye to the audience.
Awesome.
See you later.